Welcome back. In today's video, we're going to talk about what's happening right now in the California housing market at the county level. If you missed my other video, I posted that about 2 weeks ago regarding what's happening at the statewide level, going in detail regarding prices, sales, and inventory, and much more. So in today's video, we're going to talk about different regions in California and counties because there's some very big changes and very big differences compared to each county. So here's a high-level overview of what's happening in the California market. This, by the way, is for July stats, and I realize it's mid-September. It takes around 3 to 4 weeks to post the previous month's data. So I should have August stats in about 2 weeks from now. Of course, I'll post a video once that gets released from the California Association of Realtors. Of course, if you guys are new here, I am Jason Walter, and I post frequent housing market updates so you guys can be more informed. All right, let's go on here. So July, we're only talking about existing home prices, home sales. So only for existing houses. This video excludes brand new home construction. So sales fell 4.1% compared to July of 2024. And the only reason why I'm sharing this, I shared this in my other video. I'm going to share how each of the regions fared because every market is different. So prices are down by 0.3%. We're at $884,000. That's the median sale price. And like I mentioned in my other video, this marks the third consecutive month of year-over-year decreases, which is very rare because home prices have been negative statewide year-over-year only 11 months in the past 161 months. And here we are, 3 consecutive months of decreases. This small decline pales in comparison to the 45% gain we've seen since July of 2019. And of course, it pales in comparison to the 40% decrease we saw in July 07 through July 08. However, having said that though, the California housing market is definitely slowing down. So for example, the unsold inventory index is at 3.7 months. This means at the current sales pace for all the houses for sale in California as of the end of July, they'd be sold in 3.7 months. That figure was around 1 month supply back in 2021, and the peak was around 17 months supply back in 2008. Having said that, the average July since July of 2010 is only 3.4 months. Therefore, we're slightly above what's considered a more normal range. And again, I went over in great detail regarding prices, inventory in my other video about 2 weeks ago. Days in the market increased by 40% for the state as a whole. That means it's taken about 8 days longer to sell a house. So a big increase, or a big percentage increase, but really houses taking about 1 week longer compared to 12 months ago. So keep these in mind, 3.7 months, 28 days for days in the market, because this right here, SoCal, sales decreased by 1.7% compared to the 4.1% average decline for the state as a whole. So sales are down by 1.7%, prices are down by 0.7%. The unsold inventory index, the month supply, days in the market, and the sale price to list price ratio is on par with the statewide average. So for example, the statewide average for this ratio is 98.5%, which means for July, out of all the houses that did sell in California, I have to remember the state, they sold for 1.5% below the seller's asking price. Compare that to the spring home buying season of 21 and 22. That ratio was at 105%, which means that homes on average were selling 5% over asking. Now they're selling about 1.5% below asking. All right, that's SoCal. Let's have a look at the Central Coast. Sales are up and also prices are up quite a bit as well, up by 4.9%, way higher compared to the small decline for the state as a whole. These other ratios is more or less on par with the state as a whole. The Central Valley, which of course I'm located here in Sacramento. And by the way, if you guys are interested in Sacramento content, I have a second YouTube channel which is called Sacramento Home Goals, if you guys want to learn about the market there. I post market updates for the Sacramento region on that channel about once per month. So anyways, for the Central Valley as a whole, it's a giant area. Sales are down and prices are flat. And these other metrics below is on par with the state. The Bay Area, sales are down by 4.1, prices are flat, and the month supply is only 2.7 months compared to the statewide average at 3.7 months. So therefore, the month supply is much lower in the Bay Area compared to the state as a whole. So the Bay Area market is not crashing, but it is slowing down. So for example, inventory in the Bay Area is up by 40% compared to July of 2024, yet sales decreased by 4.1%. So even though there's 40% more houses for sale, sales still decrease year over year. Also in the Bay Area, the sale price to list price ratio is 100%, which means on average, houses are selling for the seller's asking price on average. And this ratio is inflated always because it's very common for much of the Bay Area for homeowners to list their houses for sale for far less than current market value. So go figure, houses are selling for the asking price on average. This is much different compared to the far north, where that ratio was at 97.1%, and these other metrics tend to be a lot softer. Yet in the far north though, sales are up by 4.9 and prices are up by 3.1%. All right, let's talk about sales, and then we'll talk about prices and inventory here. So I want to share this again because sales are at very low levels and have been for about 2.5 years. We have been hovering around a sales pace at around 250 to 300,000 units per month on a seasonally adjusted basis compared to the 400,000 we should be seeing historically speaking. And in my opinion, one of the main reasons why sales are down is because of housing affordability, because affordability, of course, is a big problem still. So here's a pie chart looking at the number of home sales by region. And this really, let me explain this. The big picture here that I want to share with you guys is that what really happens in SoCal really impacts the overall the statewide figures, because 43% of all home sales in July came from SoCal. On top of that, if we look at SoCal, the Central Valley, and the Bay Area, that represents around 80% of all home sales in the state. So what happens in these three counties or these three regions really overall impacts the statewide numbers here. So for example, what happens in far north really is not going to affect the statewide averages. The California Association of Realtors also provided this as well. This is the percent change in sales by price segment, and really all price tiers are more or less flat year over year. Not a big increase in the upper range of the market, for example. So sales over $2 million this July only rose by 2% from July of 2024. Now here's a big change though, because for the state as a whole, pending home sales are down by 6.9%, which means that buyers getting the offers accepted fell by nearly 7% year over year, which will impact closed home sales once you release August numbers in about 2 weeks. This of course is one of the main reasons why inventory is increasing, because sales are going down. People are listing the house for sale, but sales are decreasing, and therefore housing supply is actually increasing. But actually, it's actually decelerating though, which I'll share here in a little bit. All right, regarding prices, I just want to share at a high level for the state as a whole, the median sold price decreased by 1.7% compared to June this year. Normally prices are flat in July compared to June though, so this is a steeper drop than what is normally expected. On top of that, this decrease down by 0.3% year over year is much worse compared to the average July year over year change going all the way back until 2010. So the average change each July since 2010 is a gain of 8%. However, this year we're down by 0.3%. So of course the market is definitely slowing down, which of course is good because home buyers have had a very challenging time to buy houses over the past several years. Now, speaking of that, more houses are selling for below the seller's asking price on average. So this July, 31.3% sold over the seller's asking price. This of course means that around 69% sold below or at the seller's asking price. So in other words, this is good news for home buyers because homes on average are not selling way over asking, and on average they are selling for less than or at the seller's asking price. Way different compared to April of 22, when 73% sold over the asking price on average. Now, of course, this all varies by the region though, right? So out of the 53 counties that the California Association of Realtors tracks, there's only 1, 2, 3, 4 in which on average, they sold for over the seller's asking price. So for example, in San Francisco, that ratio was around 68% sold over the asking price. It was actually very close to 50% in Santa Clara, San Mateo, and Alameda. Looking at Sacramento, for example, which is right here, around 30% of the houses that did sell sold over the seller's asking price, more or less in line with the statewide average. And in Sacramento, for example, we're getting around 1 to 2 offers per property versus the 6 offers on average that we saw about 3 years ago. So of course, the market is definitely slowing down due to a sharper increase of inventory. Now, speaking of that, here's a really good snapshot looking at the month supply going all the way back until January of 2005. I don't remember who made this comment on my channel. They basically asked, are we going to see another 2008 crash in the California housing market? And my reply was that the month supply would have to nearly quadruple because during the Great Recession, the month supply peaked at, I think it was 16.6 months. Back in January of 2008. Now we're at 3.7 months. So we're not even close to the fallout of the market that we saw during the Great Recession. However, like I mentioned though, the month supply has been rising and it's also above pre-COVID levels. And of course, even though it is rising over the past couple of years, it's not even close to the craziness during the Great Recession where there was just a glut of houses for sale in California and of course statewide as well. When we look at the total number of houses for sale in California, here's a percent increase. So the total amount of houses for sale, which is actually right here, actually increased the highest level since October of 2019. So we have been seeing this kind of steady increase of inventory, but over the past several months, as you can see right here, the gains are actually losing momentum. And that's this right here. So we're up by 37.7%. So we have around 38% more homes for sale in the state from a year ago, but it is decelerating. This marks the smallest year-over-year increase since December of 2024. In my personal opinion, this is due to a lack of houses being listed for sale due to the fact that people are deciding not to list their house for sale because they don't want to trade in their home that has a 3% rate for a 6 to 7% rate, for example. So we're seeing a low level of new listings hitting the market, and therefore that's kind of like causing this decelerating of inventory that we've been seeing for the past several months. So if you're a home buyer, it's great to see more options, but the gains are losing momentum. If you guys want to see home prices crash, if you guys want to see a glut of homes for sale, this figure here would have to be going up like this and not going down. Now here's a really good sign though. If you guys are looking to buy a house, and also if you guys are looking to sell a house, something to be cognizant of as well. So here's a really big disparity. Look at the Southern California market. Active listings or housing supply is double that from a year ago, up by nearly 104%, yet sales decreased by nearly 2%. So even though there's twice as many houses for sale in SoCal, sales still decrease. What is normal though is that we should see sales increasing at a lower pace compared to active listings, which is what we're seeing right now. But the delta here is much greater than what we should be seeing right now. We're also seeing the big disparity in the Bay Area and the Central Valley as well. Now here's a look at housing supply for each of the counties that the California Association of Realtors tracks. So housing supply or housing inventory increased year over year in every single one of the counties they track. And this is their slide, which is, you can't even read it because the counties got cut off. So because of this, I actually had to download their PowerPoint and adjust the margins so you guys can actually see it. And that was a total pain, but here it is right here. So look at this, Kings County they're seeing a gain over 100%. Same goes for San Bernardino in SoCal. But look at the East Bay. Contra Costa County, they're seeing a gain over 80% year over year. And also big gains in Ventura and San Joaquin, Imperial County as well. In Sacramento County, for example, we have approximately 40% more homes for sale. But in contrast, look at San Francisco and San Mateo. I mean, San Francisco is up by what, less than 5%. San Mateo is up by about 10% year over year. This, my friends, all supports home prices either going up or not going down as much because they don't have an environment in which inventory is absolutely skyrocketing. Whereas the East Bay, for example, is much, much different. I mean, Contra Costa County up by about 85% compared to San Francisco up by only about 5%. Every market is different. All right, I hope you guys are still watching today's video because I'm gonna share how each of the counties fared compared to or looking at prices and home sales. So for example, looking at home prices based on the median sale price, this means that half the houses sold for above this amount and half sold below this amount. This does not mean home values, does not mean that your home value decreased or increased by these percentages here, right? So out of all the 53 counties that they tracked, 31 of them posted a year-over-year increase in their median home price compared to 21 counties had a price decrease year over year. So therefore, the majority of California's counties are still reporting gains in prices year over year. And the biggest gains for the regions are the Central Coast and the far north. When we look at sales year over year, out of those 53 counties, 34 experienced annual sales decreases, with 9 counties dropping by more than 10%. The biggest decreases are in Mendocino County, Lake, and Madera. So therefore, the majority of California's counties are experiencing a decrease in sales, yet prices are still up year over year. When looking at all these regions, the only regions that posted a gain in sales were the Central Coast and the far north. All right, let's have a look at the Bay Area. The most expensive county statewide is San Mateo at $2.1 million. Prices there are flat, but sales are up by double digits. In contrast, Marin County sales tanked down by 13.2%, yet prices are up by 1.9%. Contra Costa County, prices there are down by 5.9%, which makes sense that inventory has increased tremendously from a year ago. So prices are down year over year. Napa County, I don't really put a whole lot of weight into these numbers here because Napa, you could have a giant multi-million-dollar winery that has tons of land, so that can really skew the numbers. Or you can have a more disproportionate share of more affordable houses that sell in Napa, which also skews the numbers as well. This does not mean that if you own a home in Napa, that your home value decreased by 12% in one single year. All right, looking at the Southern California market, Orange County is, of course, the most expensive county out of these here. Prices are up by 0.7%. Sales are down by 1%. I don't know what's going on here, but Imperial County sales rose by 116%. I'm wondering if that has to do with sales from a year ago, maybe due to wildfires that occurred there a year ago. I don't know. If you guys live in SoCal, then leave me a comment below. A lot of people asking me about San Diego. Prices there are up by 2%, yet sales are down. Ventura, prices are down by 2.3%, but sales rose quite a bit, up by nearly 13%. Moving on, let's talk about the Central Coast. Monterey, I actually love Monterey. Prices there are up by 8.2%, and sales rose as well. Santa Barbara, they must have had a giant, luxury home sale, or maybe multiple of those, because of course prices are not up by 32%. It's likely due to the mix in sales there. In Santa Cruz, they're up by 3%. In the Central Valley, let's look at Fresno. Fresno prices are up by nearly 5%. And let's look at Sacramento, which is right here. Sacramento, we're at around $560,000. A small decline, basically flat from a year ago, and sales barely up by 1%. Placer County, just northeast of Sacramento, which encompasses Rockland, Roseville, going all the way through Incline Village in Lake Tahoe. Prices up, but sales are down by nearly 2%. And here's what's happening in the far north. Feel free to pause and screenshot. And other counties as well. Amador County, prices up by 4%. El Dorado, which includes El Dorado Hills, prices up by 3.2%, yet sales are down by 3.5%. And Yolo County, prices up by 4.7%, yet sales tanked down nearly 10%, and a decrease of 7% in Yuba County. With that said, please like and subscribe. And of course, if you're looking to make a move to the greater Sacramento area, check out my other YouTube channel, Sacramento Home Goals. Appreciate you guys watching today's video. Please like and subscribe. Have an amazing day, and we'll see you in the next video.